welcome back. Laura and I are back in our sensible positions in our chairs, sensibly at our desks, which is fitting because today we're going to be talking about... What are we talking about, Laura?
We're going to be talking about our top tips for desk jockeys. I thought this would be a good time to do it because we've had the pleasure of delivering some wellness, health, fitness workshops for a few different companies recently, haven't we?
Absolutely.
You so more than me, but going in doing both combination of online and in-person wellness workshops, which has been really nice to do, and getting a good sense of what people that typically have, desk-bound jobs where it's probably quite difficult to get out and be active during the day, things that they typically struggle with, because I think a lot of us will have the same common things that we struggle with. And simple tips to help them, nudge them in the right direction.
That's it. I think whenever we have these conversations, we just notice themes and trends emerging, some of them not so surprising, others slightly more surprising, and with the greatest will in the world, it's fantastic for us to go into that setting, because obviously our day-to-day jobs are slightly different to a typical desk job, although I do spend more time at my desk these days than I'd like. And also going to people who aren't coming to us asking to fix things, but we're being forced on them really by their companies. They've employed us to help them develop, but it's something that we're going to them where they are, so they're not necessarily someone that's actively shown an interest in this. So the problems are slightly different, and it presents us with different challenges, which is great, but also it enables us to get super creative. And so we thought, given that, we'd go through the most common things we've seen and how to help you manage your health and wellness around a busy life, but particularly a busy job. Yeah,
I think it'd be good to know what you think as well, Ian, but I think the three common themes that I did kind of pick out from all the conversations that we've been having recently was, firstly, managing stress. A lot of people are dealing with high stress levels, and it's making it difficult for them to work towards their goals. Sleep routine, obviously such a massive part of your health, whether that's getting into a good routine around work or getting enough sleep, quality and quantity, and then time management, having enough time in your day, in your routine for exercise, for training, for relaxing. Just general time management were three big themes that I picked out from conversations.
I mean, I would completely agree with those. They're exactly what we see. I think I was really shocked by how many people cited stress as their weak spot. When we've been doing the corporate workshops, one of the first things we do is we'll ask people we do this with clients as well, we'll ask them to mark themselves out of 10 on all these different areas of health, to see where they're at, and stress consistently was super low when we're going out to these companies. And that was interesting because it is an issue that we see clients report to the studio with, but maybe not the most prominent one. Whereas actually we're going into these offices where people have a gym membership already, or they might already be doing something, so they weren't looking to work with us. Stress was the key thing, 100%. And obviously the thing to stress here, no pun intended, in fact, pun entirely intended, that was entirely deliberate and I want all the credit, is that they all bleed into each other. So being stressed will impact on your sleep, will impact on your perception of time and how much time you have, how productive you are, how focused you are. They all bleed into one another. So whilst we can, I think it helps to compartmentalise them and look at tackling and focusing on one area at a time, there will be bleed over to all the others and you'll feel the needle move in different areas. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Let's dive in then. Let's have a look at them all. What is the number one thing that we normally say? What's the number one bit of advice?
So I know it sounds simple and boring, guys, but it will help with so many different areas. Is planning ahead and booking stuff into your calendar. And I guess think of this like you do with anything at work, where you're booking in for a meeting with someone else, with a colleague, or you're meeting a friend for coffee or something. You're putting it in your diary, in your calendar, on your phone, whatever, and you're kind of making that a date and you're committing to it. And I think you should do the same for yourself. You've got to prioritise yourself as well. If you don't book it in, it's so likely to just kind of get pushed to the bottom of the pile, priorities pile on top, and then before you know it, you've been working all day and you've run out of time to train. So try and book it in ahead. I like to look at my week in advance and try and stick to like roughly the same times if you can. If you can train at the same sort of time, it makes it easier, doesn't it, to get into a routine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always try and commit to putting it in my diary, in my calendar. And then if it needs to get moved around, that's fine. I can move it around, but I don't get rid of it. My training sessions, make sure it doesn't get deleted. It just gets shifted around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the look at the way you are talking about your gym and your workouts and your health appointments, your appointments with yourself. A great example I like to talk about is if someone says to you, "Oh, why don't we meet up on Thursday morning next week?" and you are flying to Canada, for example.
Cool.
Your response would be, would it be, "Oh, I'm going to be on a plane actually because I'm flying to Canada," or would it be, I'm supposed to be on a plane to Canada. I've got a flight booked." It would never be the second one. No, it is a definite. It's happening unless you're super jet set, and you're going to charter one last minute. That is an example of something that is fixed. And in your head, it's a non-negotiable. There's what we call bright lines that we don't let people cross. And what we want to try and create is an environment whereby you place the same level of importance on looking after yourself as you do on getting a flight somewhere. It's a non-negotiable. We want to try and bump it up the priority chain, understanding that when you do that, everything else benefits. This is something we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really fair. I call it, I've got it in my diary as my hour of power.
Nice.
Hour of power on a Sunday afternoon, evening, recurring, to plan out my week and look at the non-negotiables with regards to my training, and then things like this that we've had booked in for ages. And then obviously picking up the kids from school, another non-negotiable, or taking my son to football practice. Things like that. They're things that I'm not going to move and I'm not willing to move, and then everything else has to fit in around them. And if they won't fit, they're just not going to fit, and it can wait till next week. I think there is a culture, and there's a lot of people, you'll probably know someone that's like this, and if you don't, it might well be you, that identifies as wanting to be busy, as having last minute meetings crop up because it's so important and you're so required at your work. And we think that if we're not seen to be super busy, super stressed, then we feel like someone might see us as not integral or not important or not doing a good enough job. We associate busy with productive, and it might not necessarily be the case. Whereas actually, I think if you communicate effectively, do you know what? It's really important to me. I'm the kind of person that looks after myself and that values my own health, and that enables me to be a high-performing individual and to show up as a better boss, as a better colleague for you at work. All of a sudden, those people go, "Oh, wow, I really respect that." And if they don't, also, you shouldn't worry yourself with that person's opinion, because it's true and it is what's going to work, and that's what all the scientific studies will show you. I think the other thing for me is when you say we're booking it in, another advantage of booking it in, a lot of the times people say to me, "Oh, I don't know when I'm going to have that time on a Sunday to sit down and plan the rest of my week." Put it in your calendar and then you can move it. But if it never goes in, then it's more likely to just get forgotten. Whereas when it's in there, I can just jump on, it's easy these days on your phone, you just click and drag it down to 7 o'clock because you're not dragging it down to the next day. But again, that will bring awareness to that change that, "Oh, look, I made this commitment and I'm letting it slide." And that brings awareness to it, which hopefully means then you can change it going forward and improve it.
Yeah. I also find it helps a lot with just general stress management if you've got stuff booked in and you can see what your week looks like in advance, and you kind of know what you're setting yourself up for. Whereas if I know in my head, right, I've got to fit in 4 training sessions, somehow got to fit in a walk tomorrow, but I'm so busy, that's really stressful, and you might end up having all of that stress and not get any of it done. Whereas if you planned it in, you know what you set out to do, and it can be a bit more calming.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you put it really nicely here, in the same way as we talked about the flight. This is something I talk a lot about with coaching clients. It's about self-respect and about valuing yourself as highly as you value others. So you've put here in the notes for the call, that you wouldn't randomly cancel or not bother to show up to a meeting with someone who you respect and whose time you value.
Yeah.
That should be the same for you. Every time you don't keep a promise to yourself, you're losing confidence in yourself, and you're also sending yourself a very clear message that you're not worth worrying about, you're not worth investing that time with. And that can really seep into your sense of self-worth. So it does go deeper than just, oh, did I do what I said I'd do? You know, you've got to think more deeply than that, because it does have deeper ramifications if you do it consistently and it becomes something you identify as the person that lets yourself down, the person that doesn't go to the gym even though they said they would, the person that doesn't keep promises to themselves.
Kind of lose trust in yourself a bit, don't you? If that keeps happening.
And that's what confidence is, right? Having trust in yourself, or trust if if you're confident in a friendship or confident in a relationship, it's because you trust that relationship. You have a relationship with yourself. So you can lose trust in that, and self-confidence, and then self-worth, and then obviously it's a slippery slope. Yeah.
Important one.
I think so.
To kick off with.
Yeah. But that's why it was top of the pile, right?
Had to start with that one. Second one. I guess this one's more... Well, this covers a lot of different things to do with routine, managing your stress, but when I was kind of prepping for this, I was thinking about when I used to... So before I became a coach, I used to be a research assistant and have a 9-to-5 typically job. Always ended up being a lot more than that. And I didn't really think much about my routine then. I kind of rolled out of bed at the last possible moment, and then I was immediately stressed because I was running late, didn't make myself breakfast, I didn't take lunch with me. It was just go, 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 Monday to Friday. Couldn't wait till the weekend came around because I was exhausted. And that's what I did for a long time, and that just made my stress levels constantly elevated. Whereas when I could get into a bit more of a routine where it always starts the night before, doesn't it? With getting a little bit more prepped, whether that's making some overnight oats to take in with you, or going to bed at a decent time. Just starting to build a routine that works with you so that you are a bit more calm in the morning. I just found that having even just an extra 20 minutes in the morning can make such a difference for the person you show up to be at work. You can turn up as your best version, ready to focus. You're fueled, you're hydrated, rather than turning up in panic and rolling into your first meeting stressed.
Absolutely. And I think, the reason why we're recording this is mainly aimed at people that do put their career quite high up on their priority list. So how you show up at work is really important. Not just that you show up at work, but how you show up at work. So do you show up at work more effectively as the person that you want to be or become? If you are the person that's gotten out of bed when the alarm went rather than hitting snooze 4 times, you have eaten a decent nutritious breakfast that's going to give you energy and fuel you. Have you been out for a walk, to start to get your body ticking over, to allow yourself to think? Have you planned your day effectively? Have you managed your time effectively? Have you gotten dressed? Have you had a shower? Have you groomed yourself? All these things that go into how you present and how you're perceived at work. In half an hour you could achieve a lot of things and turn up very differently. So it's super important. And I think the stress reduces the more control you feel like you have. A lot of us are reactive from the very first thing in the morning. So that's
exactly how that's what my routine was there was no routine. It was completely reactive.
So we want to swap those round from reactive to creative. Or we talked about the term generative earlier, didn't we? How can you create your day? What do you want your day to look like? Because if you don't have this set structure that you want to start with, and then let's see how well we can stick to it, other people or other people's priorities will create your day for you, and you'll be reacting to them. And we talked about it a lot with I think we've talked about it in the past, but things like having your phone as the first thing. If that's your alarm in the morning, you're swiping the alarm off and immediately you're bombarded with other people's stuff. Whether it be Susie, who you went to school with, bragging about her bikini body on her holiday, and you go, I feel terrible about myself. Or Jim, who's got a new car, and God. Generally, social media will make you feel worse because the top 0.01% is funneled to the front and go, look how exceptional these people are. They may be an absolute car crash behind the scenes. But again, you're being reactive. Or it might be an email from someone who's irritated you because they've just pushed something off on you because they're not very good at their job as you perceive it, and you react to that. Or they're giving you their priorities. You're being reactive rather than starting your day by a regular alarm clock, or, if we're in a better place, waking up naturally when the sun comes up.
Haven't quite nailed that yet.
Dream. I'm in a good place right now. I feel pretty smug about it. I do still have the backup alarm on my Whoop in case.
I'd have to, just in case.
But yeah, if you can have a routine with it, if you can be systematic with that and get more control, feel like you have control over your day, you have structure there. And like I say, it may all go out the window, but the impression of control is often enough to reduce your stress levels.
Yeah, definitely. I do find it helps starting the night before. I try to just kind of start with just getting up earlier at first, but actually if you put the prep in the night before, it makes the morning so much easier and so much less stressful.
I always say to my wife, it's like a little love letter to myself. Like this is just a little thing, but we have a bit of a routine in our house. As I get up before, well, not before the kids these days actually, but before Sal. She always is up at 7. But I'll wake her up at 7 with a cup of coffee, which is made on the mocha pot. Now, bugbear of mine is when the mocha pot hasn't been washed up the night before. Like part of my bedtime routine is, let the dog out for a run, set the dishwasher up to go on, wash the mocha pot up so that in the morning I come downstairs and it's that little bit more frictionless, just getting my coffee ready, I do my journaling, go outside for a bit. It eases me into that day. It feels quite ritualistic, but it's building those building blocks the day before when probably your willpower is at a lower point. Yeah. But if you just remind yourself, reframe it as like, oh, this is a little gift to me for tomorrow. Yeah. Makes a big difference.
Oh, I like that. Nice.
Yeah. Leaving myself little love letters all around the house.
I'm going to try that now.
You should.
I suppose those sorts of things will probably feel like quite a lot of effort at first. They'll feel effortful. But the more you keep doing it and try to keep the momentum going with the little things like washing it up before you go to bed, that will start to become quite a nice routine. And
well, we talk about like leveraging and return on investment. So that 5 minutes, the return on investment is massive with regards to the stress that I'm saving myself.
The
so
results from it.
It's like you're right, it is more effortful in the same way as it might be more effortful to run yourself a bath and have a bath and read a book in the evening instead of sitting and watching a couple of episodes of a TV show that you've watched 16 different times or versions of before and you know exactly what's going to happen, but it's just mind-numbing. But is it going to lower your stress levels? Sometimes. Absolutely. It's a valid form of escapism. It's one of many tools you can have in your toolbox, but I would argue that taking the extra effort to turn the taps on, which you say it out loud, you think it's not that much effort, is it really? And then slide into a hot bath, but it seems like a friction point. But the return on investment there, with regards to your effort, is massive. It'll help you sleep better. Your body's going to be cooling down then. After you get out of the bath, before you go to bed, you'll have more restorative sleep. You'll wake up in the morning with more energy. And you will have reduced your stress levels. So again, that's another thing. It's just think about the ramifications of your actions in the moment, and that will hopefully make you that much more likely to do them. Yeah.
And your routine doesn't have to be exactly the same as ours. I would kind of tinker around with it and see what.
I think it should be the same as mine. Actually. I think I've nailed
exactly.
it. I'll post about it. No, I'm joking.
We'll accept no other evening routine. All right. Okay. Next, final tip. Although we'll probably, put 10 other tips in there. Just a general tip is to keep it really simple. I think a lot of us, when we have goals with our health and fitness, we try and, what's the term, bite off more than we can chew? Is that it? Yeah. Try to commit to too much at once, because starting simple sometimes seems a little bit boring, or you feel like, you're not seeing the results quick enough, so you try and commit to too much, and that's often what we find is what gets people stopping in their tracks and quitting really soon, isn't it? Because they're just trying to commit to too much. So my last tip is just to keep it super simple. While we were doing a lot of the workshops recently, we talked a bit about time, didn't we? And not committing to, if you're not training at all, for example, not suddenly committing to doing 3 hours a week of training, especially if you are super busy and it's really hard for you to get to the gym during the day. Could you stop at lunchtime and do a 5-minute circuit or a 10-minute walk, whatever you can commit to, and start with something small? I know we always say that, but then you can snowball into more things when it becomes more of a routine. But start small. Yeah,
I think another point around that is that as we don't like we don't like being beginners at things. We don't like not being competent. Our brains are conditioned to not enjoy that. However, conversely, our brains love being masterful at things and having mastery of things. So you have to push through that beginner phase. You have to be willing to suck at something in order to get better at it. However, minimum viable dose. So the reason I'm bringing that up is if you commit to an hour of being a beginner every day right at the start, that is a long time for you to feel a bit crummy about yourself when already we have internal dialogues that are majority negative anyway. And we talk a lot about self-sabotage and that imposter syndrome thing, or who am I to be in the gym with these people who know what they're doing? Everyone's looking at me. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm never going to be able to stick to this. These things will crop up. So giving it an hour to build up inside you all this negativity and this feeling of uselessness is probably not that beneficial. Yeah, whereas actually if you do 10 minutes, you can come away from that going, I did that.
Yeah, I feel pretty good.
And you can quash that voice in your head that tells you that. So I think the minimum viable dose at the start small and then build gradually as you gain more competence and more confidence with it. Yeah. So we talk a lot about people that see a workout on Instagram. I don't want to hate on Instagram, particularly when we're live on the platform, but you will see people post, I know you've talked a lot about this in the past, that you see people post these insane workouts, people that have been training at an incredibly high level, maybe ex-athletes and things, doing incredible physical feats, and that's what you're going to try and go and attempt when you go to the gym. You're not going to feel good about yourself, and it's not fair to compare yourself there either. It is like me picking up a violin, having never played it before, and expect to sound like showing my age.
That is the worst instrument to try and play.
I actually think we should do a little grid post about this. But yeah, one of my friends' sons has recently taken up the violin. Just don't want to go around their house ever again. And it's portable. So you're like, go in your room and play that. No, I will walk the halls. Just ruining your earlobes. I would never expect that, and I wouldn't get angry about it. It's something we've talked about in the past. Don't expect mastery immediately. Just accept. Go in expecting to be rubbish at something, and then just limit your exposure to those negative feelings.
And also, all those people that you do see doing these crazy workouts and stuff, they started at the beginner point as well.
And they're not doing them every day. They're doing them for your entertainment on Instagram to get your likes and clicks and love. Yeah. So they're needy as well deep down because they're not doing it day to day. Yeah.
Their training doesn't actually look like that. It's just flashy.
It's true.
Yeah, one of the things we were talking about with the guys in the workshops was doing, so if you can't get to the gym, doing something like a mini circuit. You can literally do it by your desk. If you're short on time and you've got, say, 10 minutes, pick 3 movements. So you could say you could do lunges, you could do push-ups, you could do dead bug, 45 seconds each, 15 seconds rest, 3 rounds, done, super quick. It doesn't have to be a lot, and you can build it from there.
Absolutely, and that is the cool thing about if you are just starting out and you've not been training for a long time. The gains you'll see, the improvements you're going to see are so good. They're so accelerated at that point. You will see an improvement from doing very little and spending little time. Obviously, the better you get, the more that slows down. And it gets harder to make those gains. But obviously, by that point, you're feeling competent. Therefore, it's more enjoyable for you.
If you can brace the fact that it will suck a little bit at the beginning, that is the fun bit, isn't it? When you try and see it from that mindset of I'm learning so much, and you're seeing so many gains so quickly, it can be really fun if you can.
And that is another thing where we track it. If you track, and it's the same thing as like before and after photos that we don't really encourage, or we certainly don't put up anymore on socials and things like that. But with your training, track your numbers. And you won't want to do it at the start if you're like, oh, this is embarrassing. I can only do 2 push-ups or 4 sit-ups or whatever it might be. But having that starting point then to look back on in a month, you'll be so happy. Like I do quarterly catch-ups with all of the coaching team here at GT, and Laura and I had ours this morning, and we were talking to Laura about she'd set herself a target of getting a certain amount of pull-ups. And automatically said, I didn't quite get there, but we saw a 600% increase in output, which is incredible, and that's in 3 months. So really, really important. Sorry, my phone's now ringing. Everything's ringing.
We're still live. It's all good.
We are good. Sorry about that. Couldn't see anything for a minute. What's that?
Maybe it's my phone.
That's your phone as well. Everyone's ringing us. Sorry, guys. Interruptions. A can't remember what I was saying. Yeah, but so having that starting point, again, you may well, and in fact I had to pull you back from seeing it as a negative. You're going, oh, I didn't hit my target. Like, yeah, but you've increased it times 6. And again, you wouldn't have realised that if we hadn't have looked at that. Another one was your sleep score.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
No idea how much that had gone, if you don't mind me telling everyone. It had gone up from like 50% as an average to 88%.
Yeah.
And you had no clue that had happened.
I mean, I knew it got a little bit better, but I didn't think it was like that. So that was quite nice to see the two scores side to side. Okay, we're doing all right.
So pick some metrics and track them, because that can be really rewarding at times when you're, again, that negative self-talk can get in and take over.
Yeah. Another thing, a simple thing you could do, and I know this wouldn't necessarily work for everyone. I guess it depends what kind of workplace you have and the colleagues that you work with. But I know someone in one of the workshops has an accountability buddy, which I don't think we even suggested. I think they came up with it themselves. Another colleague within their team, they've decided to buddy up with and to check in with them. I think it's every day they're doing it, but you could do it every week and just have someone that, even if you're not working on the same goals, you could check in with each other and say, oh, how's it going? Like, if you tick this off, and just kind of bounce off each other can be really helpful. So you don't feel like you're doing it by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big thing. Obviously, we're big fans of working with a coach and having a coach, but if that's not an option for you for whatever reason, or it's not something you feel ready for, then the next best step is to buddy up with someone that has expressed an interest, and don't even have to have the same goals. They don't even have to have any goals, to be honest. Just say to them, look, would you be up for helping me with this? Obviously, it's great if you're both invested in it, but sometimes it can be to your detriment if someone's got slightly different goals and you try and marry them up and say you're going to do the same thing. There's universal practices. I've talked before about my friend Pete and I, that we get outside and send each other a picture of the sunlight first thing in the morning, because that's something we're committed to trying to do to help with our sleep patterns. Definitely working for me. But it might be something more complicated, like, can you check in with me and make sure that I've, what did you eat today?
Yeah, you could send each other a picture of your dinner or something, and then you give each other ideas of what to cook as well. So
yeah, it's true. I read a really, really amazing book that I'd recommend called Group. For obvious reasons, I read this, but being a big fan of group work. But it was a group therapy thing in New York about this woman and she had an eating disorder when she joined, and one of the first things the therapist got her to do was call another person in the group every night and report and read out what she'd had for food all day to her. This is like an accountability buddy thing, and it can be really powerful, and I would highly recommend that book if you haven't. It's called Group. It's really good. I'll try and post it in the comments actually on this, so I don't know if you can notes in the call notes or on the video notes. But yeah, it's a really good tool, and it definitely can help you.
Cool.
I think we've got one more point on here, which was nutrition.
Yeah, just again, just keeping it simple, guys, in terms of nutrition can be a massive minefield, and again, it's easy to try and commit to doing way too much and transforming everything you eat or restricting everything you eat. And again, if you are super busy, you're in the office, long hours, you're stressed as well, try and keep it super simple and commit to changing one, maybe 2 things if it's small things at a time, and get the ball rolling first, whether that's adding an extra portion of veg to your dinner, or maybe you're going to start prepping your breakfast or your lunch to bring into work. Start with that first and then snowball. I find that helps with most people. I think some people do well at kind of jumping into things and making a lot of changes. It depends on you as an individual, but I would start with one thing and see how that goes first.
100%. Yep, couldn't agree more. All this stuff that we recommend, it isn't sexy, it isn't exciting, but it does work, and all the time there's new gimmicks or, oh, guess what, the new advice is this, new advice is that. The advice is always the blooming same, and it's the same for almost everything. If you want to be healthier, there are a set number of things that you can change and that you can do, and they tend to be fairly universal across the board, no matter what the affliction is, no matter what the issue you're reporting with, the thing you want to change and improve. If you take these certain universal steps, they will have knock-on improvements across the board, and they're not exciting, but what you get from them is super exciting. And actually, by acknowledging that the simple stuff works, if you actually think about it, is incredibly empowering, because there's no barrier to it. You don't need a coach to tell you what to eat. You don't need an Instagram account to follow to tell you, oh, you need this much of this, you need that much of that. You know what you should be doing. You know that it's good to move more. You know it's good to get more sleep. You know it's good to reduce your stress. You know it's good to improve every aspect of those things. You are going to feel better for it, but you're not doing it. So it's how we crack on and push through with that, and that's where the accountability buddy and looking for accountability comes in. Yeah. And don't look for the quick fix. Don't look for the magical pill. I know we're away from January now, but they will keep coming.
Yeah, a general rule, I guess, if you see something that looks kind of wacky and exciting on social media, be pretty skeptical about it.
Thing is, they appear on the news as well. Like the more, unfortunately, social media has changed the media landscape in general now. So you'll see previously seen as highbrow papers like The Guardian and Telegraph. They have to engage in clickbait as well to get your attention, otherwise they die out. So they're getting dragged down into the sort of quagmire of clickbait, and then you click on the article and it's either utter nonsense or it's completely misleading or unrelated to the headline that made you click on it. But that is the world we live in, unfortunately, where we're tempted by quick fixes, but we're here to sort of hopefully set the record straight a little bit and say, you don't need a quick fix, you need something slow and steady and very unsexy. And it's actually how my wife describes me. Yeah, so there. Nice. Have you got anything else to add, or shall we end on that?
I think we should end on that.
Yeah. I'll get a t-shirt done. Alrighty.
Cool. Well, we'll pop the book in the notes.
Yeah, I'll pop the link for the book.
Check it out.
Yes, have a look at it, give it a read or a listen, however you prefer to absorb and consume your content. Thanks ever so much for tuning in, and we will be back
soon
with
another topic.